Okay, so mm, uh, now today's subject is John, right? Okay, John Milton, of course, as you know, is uh, is usually well known for his other works that you have been maybe acquainted with in other degrees, maybe in your BA, just like Paradise Lost and Paradise Regained. But Milton is, of course, a versatile person in the literary canon of England of the 17th century. So Milton was a, why do I call him versatile character? Because he was an essayist, he was a poet, he was a critic, he was a, well, kind of politician, and uh, his epic poetry containing two great works, Paradise Lost and Paradise Regained, are the most achievements that everybody in the 17th century uh, could have achieved. So, but I'm trust that you have read, well, if not entirely, but part of the Paradise Lost or Paradise Lost and Paradise Regained. So I just decided to acquaint you with two other poems by him, two short poems by John Milton that you have not read, I think, before. So just wait for some seconds. I should just fetch a book for you. As you probably know, John Milton was the most important author of the 17th century. Before him, of course, there was the reputation of Ben Jonson that had given rise to the formation of Cavalier poetry, and that of John Donne that had been, devoted entirely to the formation of metaphysical poetry. But um, in terms of genre or generic, we can say, um, qualities of the period, it was John Milton that contributed greatly to the richness of English literature in the mid decades of the 17th century. So John Milton, of course, was mm, he was born in let's see, To show you something. John Milton was born in 1608, sorry, and he died in 1674. So, well, he did not live that long, but in the course of his life, he had some very significant achievements. The first achievement was, his 1637 Lycidas. And then he wrote a variety of pamphlets and prose critical responses to political and social shortcomings of England, just like L'Allegro. And of course, Samson and Agonistes, of course, was printed and published in 1671. It's just shortly 3 years before his death. So, but Paradise Lost and Paradise Regained were two of his great works. And the first one, Paradise Lost, was published in 1667, and Paradise Regained, 1671. So we know that it shows, the transition from Lycidas to pamphlets and then to Paradise Lost. And of course, in the middle of this process, you can just see some other qualitative productions that Milton enjoyed. Shows how dramatically he had changed. From a middle-borough author to a high-quality and masterpiece writer of England in the 17th century. Yes, so but his life was quite controversial, and he was a man of politics. And of course, you know that in 1660, that it was a time of the start of restoration, that you know that Charles II returned to the English throne in 1660, and it was a time that Charles decided to make some reformation, and of course Milton was part of it, and he undertook a variety of pamphlet writings that were of great importance in enlightening English minds in the time of turbulence. The war, the internal, or we can say civil war in England that had started in 1642. Well, of course, that time Milton was quite young, but his friendship with Andrew Marvell was very redemptive sometime, because Milton was going to be to be notorious as a dangerous man, and of course he was going to be executed, and it was the interference, or we can say, that's better to say, intervention of Andrew Marvell that saved him from death. Anyway, Milton has a very bulky volume of short poems, and these two that I have selected for you are two of them. So let's go for Shakespeare and his reverence for Shakespeare in terms of his pronouncement of the importance of Shakespeare as a canonical figure in the literary worlds of England. So, on Shakespeare. So this poem was composed in 1630. Then it should be considered as one of the earliest productions of Milton. So, you know, I told you Milton was born in 1608, and he wrote this poem when he was only 22 years old. And you can see that how a 22 years old, scholar or poet like Milton would have occupied such a high position in the canon of English literature in England that his reverence for Shakespeare could be textualized in a very aesthetic way like this. It shows that he had achieved, I mean, a very, reputable condition in England as a poet, as a young poet, actually. Okay, so let's see if, yes, Ms. Bachit, I should unlock you.
Good afternoon, sir. Okay, about the first 4 lines and first stanza. First, I should say that as we know, Milton, Shakespeare had a very much influence on Milton, and in this poem, as we know, he is talking about his great opinions about Shakespeare. The first line, may I read the first stanza?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
What needs my Shakespeare for his honored bones, the labor of an age in peeled stones, or that his hallowed relics should be hid under a starry pointing pyramid? So in this stanza, he calls Shakespeare my Shakespeare, and this shows that he feels a connection with Shakespeare, and shows that this being obsessed with Shakespeare. And also, he wants this in this poem. He wants to talk about the immortality of Shakespeare, that death would not stop him to being famous, being honorable. And he said that even after his death, his bones are honored too, and asked if others would be listening to his words after his death. And he is dead, but he was above such things, above death, about mortality, and his presence and his nature is immortal after his death, and his memory is always alive.
Mm-hmm. So yes, actually, the first 4 lines of the poem constitute the opening, extolling of the position of Shakespeare in the eyes of John Milton. So here he starts with claiming that Shakespeare's significance and magnitude, actually, as a literary figure, needs no extolling, and of course, we should not boast him because he is as great as the pyramids that do not need actually any appraisal. So, and then what need my Shakespeare for his honored bones, the labor of an age in piled stones, or that his hallowed relics should be hid under a starry pointing pyramid. So it shows that Shakespeare, of course, is dead. He knows that Shakespeare is dead. And you know that Shakespeare died in 1616. It was, well, roughly 14 years after the death of Shakespeare that Milton composed this poem. So Shakespeare was still fresh, actually, in intellectual and poetic and literary world or atmosphere of England. But Milton's consciousness about the poverty, about the political poverty of England in the post-Shakespeare period is quite, apparent in this work. He said that Shakespeare does not need any pyramid, does not need any sepulture, because we know that Shakespeare, of course, his body can be buried in soil, but his poetry, his life, his legacy is absolutely quite obvious to us that we cannot hide any aspect of its beauty and its greatness. Yes. So, who wants to talk about these 4 lines? Yes, Fikri. Fikri Badi al-Shuwaili. Okay, so are you ready? Just wait for your friend Fikri if he can connect to the audio. Okay, I think there is something wrong with him. Mr. Muhammad, I will unlock you.
Yes, good afternoon, Doctor.
Oh yes, good afternoon.
This poem by Milton, it is basically an epitaph, and this epitaph is a short lyric written in memory of someone who has died. And also the writer of an epitaph might be someone close to the dead human being about whom the epitaph is written, like a family member. And in it, the poet attempts to write some things related to his life of the dead, like the flesh of the dead or his character, and so. And concerning the structure of the poem, it is a piece of 16-line poem contained within one stanza. The lines are divided into hieroglyphs, and this means that they rhyme in pairs from the beginning to the end of the poem. Also, in this poem, Milton has tried to honor or to give respect to Shakespeare and literary works. Milton has tried to assert that Shakespearean's genius and creativity required much more appreciation and physical and physical implements. It is one of the primary themes. The writer has asserted that Shakespeare possessed richly genius and therefore occupied an immortal position in the hearts and minds of the readers through his dramas and verses that had been written by him. Milton has characterized Shakespeare as an extraordinary creative literary figure whose literary works are meant to be celebrated. And in addition, he has portray Shakespeare as one of the finest playwrights of all times. The radicalities are unmatched. The poem continues and it reaches the conclusion that the only truth worthy of Shakespeare exists with his readers. Those who read and viewed his work may build a lamp that will last for the rest of time. Regarding, if you excuse me to explain the first stanza, in this first 4 lines, what we call it the quatrain of the poem, the speaker puts a question to the reader and asks that what the need for his own. He tries or continues to say that the Shakespeare in the field of literature doesn't need to be by the construction of a tomb of stones for him. And this is Shakespeare's creative genius and his worthy contribution in the field of literature is on such sorts of account. And states that there was no need by the hallowed relics, what we call the deceased holy deceased, that is means the holy remains of Shakespeare under stereotyped pyramid. Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, and about the your mention of heroic couplet. You know that heroic couplet, that is the rhyming scheme that Milton applied in this poem, is it was a very common prosody for composing serious poems on, well, long poems on serious matters. So even the prosody of the poem that consists of heroic couplet demonstrates that Milton wrote this poem, composed this poem, to accomplish actually his duty in favor of reintroducing and revitalizing Shakespeare. So this is, of course, again the evidence that demonstrates how Milton had recognized the importance of Shakespeare and his position that had remained maybe less examined in the course of the Civil War, and of course in the period of the Jacobine and Caroline idiom of literature. So yes, that is the point, that how the textualization of Shakespeare by Milton was under the influence of his conscious commitment in favor of dramatize the existence and the empty position of Shakespeare in the context of British literature in the early decades of the 17th century. So yes, actually, you know that at the time that Milton wrote this poem, it was in 1930s, in the 1630s, sorry. Ben Jonson and some other people were still writing, and of course John Donne had introduced his uniqueness in the stylistics, and of course Ben Jonson had established his own reputation as a cavalier poet. But the thing is that John Milton tried to steer away from all of these political and poetical achievements, or maybe beliefs. So his register as an independent poet could be very contributive to his practice of writing poems and composing poems about some less acknowledged subjects like Shakespeare. So yes, and this was the first stanza of the poem. Then he continues that Shakespeare lies in his grave, but he does not need any pyramid, because his grave is just a temporary place for him, and his soul is alive, and we all love that soul because it was under the impression of that soul that Shakespeare produced some of the most delicate and most beautiful poems and drama ever. Dear son of memory, great heir of fame, what needest thou such weak witnesses of thy name? Thou in our wonder and astonishment hast built thyself a livelong monument. Actually, it's a live long, maybe. So what does it mean to you? I mean, just the way that, that Milton tries to establish his regard, or we can say his respect for Shakespeare. What does it mean to you? I mean, this part. Mesne Kunam. And then I would unlock you, Muhammad. Okay, I have unlocked you, Mesne Kunam. And you, Muhammad Khalil.
Okay, about the second stanza, I have to say that actually the first part is talking about the works of Shakespeare, as we said it, as actually it was mentioned in the first stanza. And he's trying to say that by weak witness of thy name, he's trying to say that all those tombs, or I don't know, like graves, none of them actually work, and none of them are necessary, because he already composed lots of plays and lots of sonnets or poems that are valuable. So that is his monument. That is what he's going to be remembered by. And none of these earthly things are going to matter while he has done something so amazing that he's going to, actually people are going to remember him for years and years.
Mm-hmm. So something that you should pay attention to when you're reading the poem is that Milton does not intend to undermine the mundane physicality and, of course, existence of Shakespeare. So, but the only thing that he wants to offer is that Shakespeare does not belong to a particular period, and this is something that, of course, had been admitted before by Ben Jonson when he wrote an introductory note to the first folio of Shakespeare's plays that was published in 1633. In that introduction, Ben Jonson actually called Shakespeare a global asset. I believe that Shakespeare does not belong to English people only, but he was a cultural capital that belongs to the world. And it is a kind of, I think, reiteration or intertextual representation of that idea about Shakespeare, that Shakespeare is an asset. Shakespeare is a cultural asset, a cultural capital that should not be confined to the land of England or to the world of Englishness. It is a thought, it is a system of values that has been established by Shakespeare, and how Shakespeare contributed to the betterment of the world as a place that some people may hate. You should read maybe a very important book by Harold Bloom, and the book is Shakespeare, The Invention of the Human. In that book, you will see how the judgmental realization of Ben Jonson and John Milton and even Wordsworth could be approved by the evidence that Harold Bloom offers in that book, that how Shakespeare was the inventing figure of human beings. So it is like a god that has created human being from scratch. And that is very great that Milton himself, one of the most important figures in the canon of English literature, considers Shakespeare as the person who transcends the physical and mundane limitations of this world. Okay, so this is a kind of thou in our wonder and astonishment hast built thyself a livelong monument. So, and this livelong, what is that livelong monument, do you think? What does it refer to? It is an implication in that line. Of course, I do know that word may implicitly refer to immortality, but what kind of immortality has Shakespeare left behind, and what was his legacy? Actually, his poetry and his plays, right? Something that we call Shakespeare's oeuvre. The immortal monument is not Shakespeare's fame or himself or the image of Shakespeare, but it is, I mean, the collection of his works that he left behind, like his. Well, actually, Shakespeare did not write any novels, Mohammed. Shakespeare was a dramatist and he was a poet, not a novelist. So you know that Shakespeare wrote two long narrative poems. One of them is Venus and Adonis, and the other is The Rape of Lucrece. Both are tragedies, actually, tragedies or tragical poems. And he wrote 140 and 154 beautiful sonnets that are considered as the most beautiful sonnets ever written in English language. And of course, he wrote 36 or 37 sometimes plays that are of greatest, aesthetic values of in the world. Okay, for whilst to the shame of a slow endeavouring God, thy easy numbers flow, and that each heart hath from the leaves of thy unvaluable book those Delphic lines with deep impression book took. Then thou, our fancy of itself bereaving, dost make us marvel with too much conceiving, and so sepultured in such pomp dost lie, that kings for such a tomb would wish to die. So would you explain these lines? I just want to know the ideas.
Sir, about the third stanza, I think he's kind of comparing the other writers and poets maybe to Shakespeare, and he's trying to say that his work, I mean Shakespeare's work, was so valuable that nobody could reach his level. I mean, it doesn't matter how hard the other ones tried. He was so unique and one of a kind in his way that no one could actually be compared to him. Even though the other poets and writers' works are, good and valuable, he was something else. And the way he actually contributed to literature cannot be reached by people so easily, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is a comparative recognition of the talent or the faculty of the poet, and including himself actually. Milton here is comparing other poets and himself with Shakespeare, and he believes that Shakespeare's pen was so fluent that he did not need thinking about what he wants to write, but other poets need to speculate upon writing. So this is a juxtaposition that may again, understate the poetic value or achievements of other poets compared to Shakespeare. So he believes that Shakespeare's talent, of course, equips him with a gift that makes him needless of a kind of attempt that other should have, to think about writing and just practice writing as a process that is that much difficult for them to some extent, or may require, extensive strive on writing. So that is again the matter of faculty, that Shakespeare's faculty, Shakespeare's talent has been, praised by Milton. Yes, thy flow by numbers. It means the lines or poems or plays that he produced, and that each heart hath from the leaves of thy unvalued book. So, well, it means that we can enjoy heartily, your works. Those Delphic lines with deep impression took, then thou our fancy of itself brewing, dost make a marvel with too much conceiving. So what is this? Do you have any ideas about this?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. So what do you want to say?
Yeah, about the Delphic, sir. The Delphic means prophetic, that is related to a prophecy or a prophet, is it? And these lines written by Shakespeare has a deep impression heart and minds of the readers till the present day.
So I didn't get your point entirely. Could you repeat yourself?
You said that what the word Delphic means, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Delphic means prophetic, that is related to a prophecy or a prophet.
Yes, Delphic. Yes, it is a Greek mythological term, actually, relating to Delphi. Yes, those Delphic lines with deep impression took, then thou our fancy of itself bereaving, thus make us marvel with too much conceiving. So what is the meaning of this part? Make somebody marvel, and that is does to make us marvel with too much conceiving. So we are here to analyze it, right? you to think about it, and then I will help you. Yes, Miss Hudan. Oh, are you ready? Well, actually, yes, it is a kind of positive remark that Milton is offering about the influence of Shakespeare on other poets and other people. So it says that you take us from the lowest trivial level to the, greatest sublimity of transcendental world. So that is the form that is actually, incomparable poetical characters of England. So what happened to you, Miss Hudan? Do you want to say something? This line, these lines of great importance to us, that we should discuss it now. Yes, the poet says, those Delphic lines have a deep impression too. So Delphic actually refers to the Apollonian actually aesthetic, inspiration that would be useful for all poets to enjoy producing original poems. And that is a mythological reference to the greatness of Shakespeare and the impression that Shakespeare would leave on such people. And he says that then thou, our fancy of itself bereaving, means that our fancy itself bereaving means that we understand, we understand, we can realize, our humility, our own nothingness when we think about you, when we compare ourselves with you, we are nothing actually, and we know that. However, it is your text that will give us a better understanding of our world and of ourselves, because your poetry or your plays take our imagination from triviality to sublimity, and this is something that we have conceived, that we have understood about you. This is the meaning of this part. But unlike you, Ms. Houdan, what happened to you? So, sepultured in such pomp does lie, that kings for such a tomb would wish to die. So again, it is a, uh, a practice of revitalizing Shakespeare's plays. And he says that Shakespeare's position in the world of literature is so high that even kings like to be in his shoes, and they would die in the place that Shakespeare has died. So that is maybe a kind of, reverence, a kind of reputation that even kings can take even from the grave of Shakespeare. Shakespeare has died and he has been buried somewhere, and it is the envy of the kings to die in his tomb, or they wish they were in the tomb of Shakespeare, because they know how great he was and how the meaning they could take from Shakespeare's greatness and talent. Okay, so let's take some rest. I should get back to you in maximum 10 minutes. Okay, so we are going to read another poem by Milton. It's a short poem, very short poem, but of marvelous content. No, that is not to my father. It is just, let's see. Sorry. Okay, so that's quite unfortunate that I have no access to that poem either, because previously I had it on the public domain of the public library of New York. So the library had a very rich website of all old English poems. So, but I can see that there is a persisting error that does not allow my access to that. I should make an account, but the account is paid, so I should pay, I think, $10 so that I can have access to the database. It is not in Norton Anthology. I have even I have the extensive volume of John Milton's short poems, and it is not involved in that book too. So that's quite weird. That the only volume of Milton's shorter poems does not include that poem too. So it was a very delicate poem. I just liked it. I mean, reading it to you and working on it. Anyway, that's fine. So the first one that is about Shakespeare is the only Milton poem that we should work on, and of course, it will be only included in your exam. So the second one, The Father, is not excluded. Is not included, sorry. You can buy books from Amazon, but the interface companies here will charge you, well, very, very high. So buying a book abroad through these websites that are active in Iran will cost an arm and a leg for you. So, well, for a very cheap book that may cost maximum $5 or $10 on Amazon, you should pay millions of $2 for that book. So you do not need to pay such substantial money for books. Yes, I will just let you know later what kind of websites you can consult to get books for free. I do know some links. Well, this is not just one website. There is a list of these PDF books websites. So I will let you know on time when I have access to. At least I should make the list. I mean, and the list should be turned into a PDF file, and then I send it to you. Okay, so I think we have nothing else to say. I have another class after you, so I should just take some rest, and then I will try to